So we have another episode of Nextdata Technical Support. And this time I'm excited to introduce Jonathon Morgan, our head of product. Hello, Jonathon.
Hey, Cornelius, how's it going?
It's great. So the topic today is covering the kinds of questions that we got during our launch event 2 weeks ago. It's, first of all, really interesting for us to see what people were, what people focused on in the technical content, and then, of course, how we answered them. So the first question that came up most frequently is how do we handle access control, security, and governance?
This is a great question. So access control is managed at the data product level. So we have RBAC, ABAC, like role-based access control, and can integrate with existing identity providers kind of across systems. And that's usually a part of when we onboard with a new customer. This is something that we often consider. How do we integrate with their existing access systems? We also have global policies, and I think this is really important. This is special about Nextdata. So global policies enable this idea of like scalable organization-wide governance, even in a decentralized data management context. So global policies do things like they enforce privacy rules, like masking and encryption. You can have a policy that is to guarantee semantic labels in contracts to manage sensitive data. And then the operating system supports integrations with secret and identity management systems. So think like SSO or SCIM, that type of thing.
If I were going to play that back and summarize, we're not displacing what you've currently got. We are building on what you currently have. We don't have our own access control. We're using what your organization already has deployed.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So kind of in a very simple scenario, domain onboarding is a pretty straightforward process with Nextdata, provisioning new accounts, getting people logins, kind of assigning specific users the right to view individual data products and access the underlying data. And then in a more production-like complex scenario, then we are integrating with the access control systems and rules that are already in place.
Got it. Okay, question number 2. How do you integrate with my existing data ecosystem?
So this is another great question that I think is also very important to have top of mind, because I think there's a sense, as we're talking about data products or like a data product management platform like Nextdata, that there might even be some concern, like, oh no, am I going to have to dump all of my existing tools or migrate from all of my existing tools to Nextdata? Are we going to have to learn to do things the Nextdata way? And that's actually the opposite of what we want. Something that I say a lot is that Nextdata was designed to be middleware. So although we have this beautiful user interface and we have an opinionated developer workflow and we have a great DSL for describing data products and deploying them, really all of which I think creates a very nice user experience. In the early days, or kind of the core concept in Nextdata was middleware. So without any of those things. And what that really means is that the Nextdata operating system is designed to integrate with existing systems via APIs, just like you would expect middleware to do. So it works with catalogs like Calibra. It supports integration with data quality tools. It coexists really nicely with ETL platforms. So if you're thinking about like a brownfield, I hesitate to say the word migration, but if you're thinking about transforming existing ETL pipelines into data products, it aligns with standards like ODCS. It accommodates custom drivers for integrating with different infrastructure services. Like really, the platform is designed to be extensible at an architectural level. So like I said, if you think middleware and how that might interact with all of the different infrastructure services and anything else that's in your tech stack, that's what Nextdata is designed to do.
So you said you hesitate to use the word migrations, and I know what you meant, but our audience may not know what you meant and why you hesitate. Maybe you could talk about that just for a second.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, because I think everybody's sick of migrations, and I think if it were me and I heard the word migration, I'd think, oh, this is another multi-year project. It's high risk. It might be expensive. We spend all of our time in the data space migrating from one technology to the next generation of technologies, and this is so cumbersome and complex that by the time we migrate to the new technology, it's out of date, and we might as well start the migration to the one that has emerged in the time that it took us to migrate to the last one. And this is kind of never-ending cycle of migrations and never really being done. I think like that to me, that's very painful, like as a data practitioner. And so I just want to drive home the point that adopting Nextdata for data product management, for reimagining existing ETL pipelines as autonomous data products, is as smooth and automated as possible. Like we integrate with your technology stack, and that transition from an existing data architecture, existing data workflows to a new autonomous data product universe with Nextdata, we is as autonomous as possible with as
Got it.
much reuse of existing code and logic and integration with existing technologies, again, is as possible. And so
So it's not a
that's why I
migration.
hesitate to talk about migrations.
It's
It's
not a
not really,
migration. It's an upgrade in place.
it's an upgrade in place. I love that. That's a much better way to think about it.
Get on. Okay. Third question we got about architecture and how we fit. Where does Nextdata OS fit in our data stack, and how is it deployed?
You can think of it like it sits above the infrastructure layer. So you've probably got storage and compute. Maybe you're sitting on top of Snowflake, or maybe you're using Databricks for compute. Your Databricks, like Spark, managed Spark with Databricks or something like that. Maybe you're on top of Redshift, kind of whatever your storage and compute infrastructure services are. You can think of Nextdata sitting on top of it. So Nextdata is deployed on Kubernetes. And then customers use their existing data platforms and configurations. And so that basically means that Nextdata integrates with and orchestrates those infrastructure services. It manages data products as a Kubernetes deployment. Each autonomous data product is a container managed by this Kubernetes deployment. And then you can, we have like GitOps style workflows that support different deployment scenarios, different development lifecycle stages and processes for data product development deployment. And so I think that's probably the easiest way to think about it conceptually, is that you have your infrastructure layer, the kind of required services that really are the backbone of the way that you're storing and processing data. And then what sits on top of it is the logical layer of the Nextdata operating system that defines and encapsulates data products.
So you mentioned Kubernetes. Do our customers have to be Kubernetes admins to be able to get value out of Nextdata OS?
No, not at all. Actually, we've deployed in multiple scenarios. So, what Nextdata ships with so typically we do deploy into a customer environment. And this is the way that the Nextdata operating system can get access to those infrastructure services without sending data to like a cloud service, or like Nextdata isn't a SaaS application, right? But the way that we deploy is very straightforward. We've done this a lot of times, and so our Kubernetes deployment is from a Helm chart,
Okay.
as in run the Helm chart and go, and you've got a Nextdata instance deployed into your environment. And we've even in some cases deployed into a shared Kubernetes cluster. That's a little bit more complicated, but of course we can do it. But I think the bottom line is that no, it's not essential that you're a Kubernetes expert. We are. That's why we chose that technology for managing the Nextdata operating system.
Got it. Fourth kind of question. How
Okay.
does the platform handle semantic alignment and conflicting definitions?
So semantics in Nextdata, one of the ways in which we handle those is that they're inferred using AI. And so we have kind of hooks in the system to use generative AI to infer the business semantics based on the data. So we can infer semantic models, we can automatically generate semantic models, we can create semantic descriptions of a data product or a data model or even a data attribute using generative AI. And it can also be explicitly defined. And so we have multiple languages in which, or multiple kind of DSLs for defining data products and their semantic models. YAML is a popular one, so is Python. That's also an extendable part of our platform. So if you've done a ton of work in another programming language to define the semantics of your data, SQL, for example, like these are other kind of DSLs that Nextdata supports or could support. And then the idea with our semantic contracts is that they formalize the interface between data producers and consumers. So like outside of the kind of the way in which we produce semantic models and or how they're produced by the data product owner or the data product developer. Their purpose in the platform is that they enable, like I said, they facilitate this interface between producers and consumers. So they enable validation, they resolve conflicts, and then global policies that sit on top of multiple data products or maybe operate at the domain level can enforce standard semantics across domains. And so at the data product level, as a data product owner, you define your semantic model. And at the kind of data mesh or operating system level, you might require a particular semantic, and all data product owners must adhere to that semantic based on the policy. And so that's sort of a little bit the way that we manage semantics at the global level, but then also manage them locally at the data product level.
Got it. So the governance, the sort of continuous federated governance that we see around data quality can also be used to enforce semantic standards for data products.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's one of the tools. I think there's always this tension between the autonomy of a data product and a data product owner, that they can, in a self-service way, quickly create a data product and deploy it and make it accessible and discoverable to consumers. But at the same time, we need mechanisms for enforcing corporate standards or enforcing global standards. And so that's what a global policy does. And one set of standards that's common is enforcing semantic standards, as in there's a particular way in which we name an attribute that represents a particular semantic concept, and that attribute must be present in semantic models for data products of a certain type, like defining kind of policies of that sort. And then because they're enforced computationally, it means that they can scale across a really large number of data products. And that kind of facilitates that collaboration between a data manager or a data product owner who has the responsibility for that kind of like cross-domain, conformity or the cross-domain application of semantic standards, and then the autonomy of the data product developer who wants to be able to, on their own kind of development lifecycle, on their own timeline, develop and deploy the data that fits, that serves the business use case that prompted the data product development process in the first place.
Got it. So question number 5, how does Nextdata OS ensure data quality and observability?
So as the kind of primary way is through this concept of contracts. And so we have the way that we talk about contracts is with promises and expectations. And a promise is, like the name implies, it's a promise that a data product makes to downstream consumers. It's like a guarantee or an SLA. And so a promise that I might make as a data product owner is that my data product will be updated. The data will be fresh within 24 hours. So I'll update my data at least once every 24 hours. Or a promise that I might make is that the output will adhere to a particular semantic model. And I make that guarantee to downstream consumers. Expectations are the reverse. This is a validation of input data. And so an expectation might be that I expect that a data product that I'm consuming from is updated at least every 24 hours, or that the model that I'm consuming from contains a particular attribute. And that what is really great about that, I think, is that it allows for loose coupling between data products. So as a data product owner, I can make whatever changes I want to my data product. I can make whatever changes I want to my schema or semantic model. And downstream consumers are only impacted if one of my changes breaks their expectation. And that way, we're not, like I said, we're not kind of tightly coupled together.
The whole thing becomes more resilient and less fragile.
Exactly. And self-contained. And so if I do make a change that's like a breaking change for downstream consumers, that kind of breaking change is like localized to my data product, and bad data doesn't flow through the system, which is another really important concept, I think, about the way in which an autonomous data product that Nextdata serves facilitates this contract evaluation or the evaluation of these expectations and promises.
Question number 6 about user experience and adoption. Is the platform accessible for non-technical users? Can we say post-technical users? And how is business adoption supported?
I like that. I'd like to consider myself a post-technical user.
This is actually post-technical support, but we haven't told anybody yet.
Yeah. I still write a little code. I still sling a little bit of Python. The short answer is yes. The platform is accessible for non-technical users, but I think it's important to remember that a platform like Nextdata is facilitating the collaboration between different groups of users, different types of personas.
Mhm.
So it's facilitating a relationship between, maybe we might call them like a data platform owner, who is usually like post-technical. That's the person who's responsible for example, ensuring standard semantics across data products across domains, as an example, or somebody who might be responsible for evaluating the ROI of data products, um, consumption, like resource consumption versus the value delivered. And so that's their concern. We have data product developers who are, of course, are data product owners who are responsible for defining the data product specification, maybe writing the transformation logic that really represents how input data is going to be transformed and then made available to consumers. And then consumers, who are usually business users. They might be data scientists who are looking for data that's relevant to a machine learning model. They might be analytics engineers who are building dashboards, whatever, like typical kind of consumers. And so when we think about which aspects of the platform facilitate kind of non-technical or post-technical or business users, it's really the aspects of the platform that are closest to consumption. So we have a user interface that allows for discovery of data products, understanding of data products based on their semantics, like their semantic descriptions, semantic models. You can play around with test and discovery data. You can understand, you can get a sense about whether or not a data product is trustworthy by looking at the historical evaluation of its expectations and promises. Basically, does this data product do what it says that it's supposed to do? Can I rely on it if I were to consume from it? And you can see the different output modalities of the data product. And so those are all things that are kind of consumer concerns. Those are all made accessible through our data products, through our user interface. And then from the perspective of a data product developer, we also, I think, facilitate a maybe, I don't want to say less technical, but it's not necessary that you're a data engineer to develop data products with Nextdata. We expose DSLs in YAML and Python for and SQL for or Python and YAML for data product specification. And then for the transformation logic, you can write that in whatever language is comfortable for you. It's usually Python or SQL. And what we've tried to do is abstract and automate a lot of the infrastructure concerns that usually require data engineering or infrastructure engineering expertise. And so if you're a data creator, like a data product developer or a data owner, the development and deployment of a data product, I think, is much easier and more accessible. And the reason that we focus so much on that is that we want people who've chosen to invest in domain specialization and have a lot of domain knowledge and domain expertise, people who are more like subject matter experts, for it to be more accessible for them to develop data products, as opposed to technical specialists. So again, we try and the general answer is yes, and we're trying to kind of lower the bar and make data consumption accessible for business users, to make it easy to discover, trust, and access data, and then also data creation to be easy for more like domain developers. So again, kind of deep technical expertise isn't required.
Got it. Okay, question number 7. Scalability and fit with large organizations. Is this approachable scalable across complex enterprises with many domains?
Well, we should hope so, because I think
That's what we built it for.
that's really what we built it for. And the reason that we built it for that, it's kind of it's a real challenging aspect of building a new product or starting a new company in this space, is that, as most of the people watching this will already know, kind of data mesh and data products as a paradigm or a pattern or an architecture really is most relevant to large complex organizations that have multiple domains and probably multiple technology stacks that across those different domains for whatever reason. Because the business units operate kind of independently, because some of the business units came into the organization through acquisition, because there was at different times more centralized and less centralized kind of IT direction, whatever. And most large organizations over many decades have arrived at a place where they are complex. There are multiple domains. There's a very heterogeneous technology landscape. And so it's kind of table stakes for a product like Nextdata to support that complexity, because that's really the environment in which both this kind of data mesh and data product design paradigm or data management paradigm, it's really where it shines. And that's exactly what we're trying to facilitate. So yes, is the short version. We were really built with that kind of complexity and scalability in mind.
Okay, so all about Nexty. How does the Nexty AI assistant work, and what LLMs does it use?
So Nexty, for anybody who might not have seen the launch, is a tool that we developed that basically consumes brownfield data workflows, ETL pipelines, kind of existing transformation logic, and it produces a not only a data mesh design, so domains and data products, but then it doesn't just produce the design, it produces the data product specification. It incorporates the relevant transformation logic. It associates the data product with the appropriate infrastructure services and then deploys it. And so I should point out that this type of project is something that Nextdata used to do on behalf of our customers. And we still do on behalf of our customers. But in the early days, this might take a month, 2 months, 3 months of kind of specialized, sophisticated engineers who had a lot of experience with existing traditional kind of ETL pipeline-based workflows, and also data products and the Nextdata platform. And so what everybody saw in the demo was that we've developed Nexty, which is really a tool and an agentic tool that connects to documentation systems, metadata, code itself, and it uses LLMs like Gemini and whatever to produce data mesh. And it's really it takes something that again was potentially weeks or months of work that required some specialist expertise, and we've taken that specialist expertise and we've taught Nexty how to do that on our behalf. And it doesn't do all of the work, but it does a significant amount of that work, and just takes that transformation time and shrinks it down to hours or days as opposed to weeks or months. So that's where we're heading. We're trying to go from brownfield to the beautiful kind of data product Nextdata future as quickly as possible.
Got it. So question number 9, can users extend the platform and maintain integrations over time?
That's also very important to call out that the answer to that is yes. So of course, Nextdata itself as a platform is designed to accommodate complexity and technical heterogeneity. But it's not. It can't just be Nextdata itself. So one of the ways in which we want to make sure that we can scale that is that we have a concept called a driver inside of Nextdata, and a driver is basically an interface between the autonomous data product and the infrastructure service that it consumes. And so the driver is like a common interface for the data product developer. Data product developer interacts with the driver object, and then the driver object understands the specific kind of semantics of the underlying infrastructure service. It understands the difference between provisioning a table in Snowflake versus Redshift, or how to establish a connection object on Snowflake versus Redshift versus S3 or whatever, and then expose that data to the data product developer in their code. And so that driver specification is something that we plan to open source. So we've already had a customer ask if they can develop their own driver, which is definitely our intention, is that these drivers are things that can be developed by our users, by our customers. And then ultimately, part of the reason that we want to open source it is that we expect that, of course, all vendors in the data universe will be incentivized to develop a driver for their technology, because everybody will want to integrate with Nextdata because they'll be using it as their operating system for all of their data products. But that's where the plan, and I think even more than the kind of Nextdata taking over the world future, we developed it that way on purpose, just because the reality is that even if Nextdata covers the main kind of 80% of technologies that most companies use, that 20% long tail is real long. And so we wanted to make sure that that our driver spec was open sourced, and that the platform was as extensible as possible.
So last question, what is the commercial model for this piece of software, and how much does it cost?
Um, so we tend to do annual or multi-year licenses. And so, like I mentioned before, Nextdata is deployed typically into a customer environment. And then license to that instance is, like I said, annual or multi-year. And then the cost of that license is a factor of the number of data products that the Nextdata operating system is managing. And so, based on the scale of your Nextdata installation, it impacts the cost. And like I said, kind of a typical software purchase of annual or multi-year license.
And if you want to know more, email sales@nextdata.com.
Absolutely, we're here to help.
And sell some software.
Yeah,
Jonathon, so nice to have, and so helpful to have your thoughts on these questions, both on the day of the event when you were furiously typing answers to these questions, and also today with these summaries. So, thanks so much.
absolutely. Thanks for having me.